Hello and welcome to Maths with Jacob. This lesson will focus on simplifying surds. A surd can be simplified when the number inside the square root sign has two factors, where one of them is a perfect square. Let's see how this works with some examples. Simplify each of the following surds. Number 1, the square root of 8. We can factorise 8 as 4 times 2. And one of those numbers, which is this one, is a perfect square. So this can be written as the square root of 4 times the square root of 2. And we saw that in the previous video. We know that the square root of 4 is 2 because 4 is a perfect square. So that is the simplification. So the square root of 8 can be simplified as 2 times the square root of 2. In a similar manner, the square root of 12. The factors of 12 are 4 and 3, so we have the square root of 4 times 3. That can be split up in this way. 4 is a perfect square, so the square root of 4 is 2, so that gives us 2 the square root of 3. So the square root of 12 can be simplified as 2 the square root of 3. For the square root of 20, we have the square root of 4 times 5. We've seen that 4 is a perfect square, so we write that line in this fashion. The square root of 4 is 2, so that's 2 the square root of 5. So the square root of 20 can be written as 2 the square root of 5. Let's have a look at the next slide. The square root of 18, 18 can be factorised as 9 times 2, which is the square root of 9 times the square root of 2. 9 is a perfect square, so the square root of 9 is 3, so that gives us 3 the square root of 2. 2 times the square root of 27. It's okay to have a number here. We still focus on that part there. We leave the 2 outside, and we factorise 27 as 9 times 3, which is 2 times the square root of 9 times the square root of 3. The square root of 9 is 3, so that gives us 2 times 3 times the square root of 3, which is 6 the square root of 3. We can also go the other way. If we have a surd in its simplest form, we can write it the other way with everything under the square root sign. So that 4 there, that's actually the square root of 16. So 4 the square root of 3 can be written as the square root of 16 times the square root of 3. We're allowed to multiply 16 by 3 to give us 48. So 4 the square root of 3 is actually the square root of 48. 5 the square root of 6. We know that the square root of 25 is 5, so 5 can be written in this way. Okay, so that's actually the square root of 25 times the square root of 6. We're allowed to multiply the 25 and the 6 together, as we've seen earlier, so that gives us the square root of 150. So this video has introduced us to the idea of simplifying surds, where the number under the square root sign can be factorised, where one of the numbers is a perfect square, and that allows us to actually simplify the surd.